Welcome to the Fort Collins Fellows podcast. From Colorado State University to New Belgium Brewery and the hundreds of miles of hiking and biking trails, Fort Collins has earned its well-deserved reputation as one of the top places to live in the United States. Your hosts, Patrick and Chris, were born and raised in Fort Collins. Patrick owns and runs Soukup Real Estate Services, a top-rated real estate brokerage company here in Fort Collins. Chris is the co-owner of the Murphy Whitlock Group, a top-rated residential mortgage broker based out of Fort Collins. Now join the fellas as they uncover the stories, places, and people that make Fort Collins so exceptional.
All right, everybody. We've got a special guest with us today. I was born and raised here in Fort Collins. Started cheering for the Rammies when I was a young guy, when Sonny Lubick was rocking with the team, when 1990s, when we were rocking and rolling, Bradley Van Pelt. We've had a lot of great years, and we're all super excited about the current state of affairs with all CSU athletics, and especially our football program. And today we've got none other than Coach Jay Norvell with us. So Jay, thanks for Coach Norvell. Appreciate you joining us
Coach, today. Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Well, talk to us a little bit about this. This is the Fort Collins Fellas. How did you come to be in Fort Collins?
Yeah, so I've been coaching a long time. I was a assistant for a lot of years. I'm a Midwest guy. I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, but my travels took me a lot of places as an assistant. In the Big 12, I was at Oklahoma and Nebraska and Texas, and I was in the Pac-12 at Arizona State and UCLA. But was the head coach at Nevada and had a chance to compete in Fort Collins several times. Just love the community, love the facilities here and the support, and got an opportunity to come here as the head coach and just love the community. I'm a Midwest guy. Like I said, I grew up in a college town, and this city and this college has got a lot of the qualities that I grew up with. I played at the University of Iowa, and just very similar community support, campus support, love for athletics that those two towns had.
I don't know how much I believe you, though. You just named off about like 10 schools. And I'm going to have to assume you were there for at least a couple years, 2-3 years each. And I'm looking at you, you got a full head of hair, no grays. And I'm about 35 years old, balding and full gray. So I don't know what the secret sauce is, but clearly it's traveling to different states every few years.
Yeah, no, I love what I do. I really do. I love building a program. I love the interaction with my players and coaches. I have a great staff here at Colorado State, and we have great support. I've been so excited and happy about Amy Parsons and how she's attacked the job as president. She's really invested time with us in athletics and with football in particular. So it's been great working with her. Joe Parker's just an amazing person to work with, a colleague and boss, and their vision for what they want the football program to be, it really marries mine. And we want this to be a great program that's recognized nationally for playing great football. It's an exciting brand. And we've been working to build that from the ground up. It really has been a ground up effort to build this program with a great foundation. And it starts with the roster. And, I've come from great developmental programs. I played at Iowa and coached at Wisconsin. And the formula is very much the same. Recruit great young players that want to be at Colorado State, that identify with our school, that are tough, that are physical, that want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and that want to represent this community. And we've worked really hard to put that type of product on the field. I think, we had some major overhaul issues our first 2 years with, giant groups of kids coming in. I think we had close to 50 our first year. We had 50 new kids last year.
Man.
And that's really helped set a foundation of athletes and attitude and culture And now I think we're in a position where we're more fine tuning, which is great. And a much smaller class of kids that we brought in this past December, only about 20, 22 kids. We'll add some kids in the transfer portal. We probably got 5 kids right now that, a couple linemen, a couple defensive corners, and then we just got a receiver yesterday. And so not as big in numbers, which I think is a good. We're more healthy as a roster. We should have eight returning starters on offense next year, and we should have 7 returning defensive starters. All our specialists are back, our punters, our kickers. So we've got some experience, some guys that have been in our program and know what we expect, and that should serve us well in 24.
Coach, let's talk about it. I mean, everybody's talking about NIL and the transfer portal, and I was reading what you were saying in the Colorado and back in December, and you're like, listen, we don't want to become a feeder school for these, these big conferences. And what is your just thoughts on the state of college football and what's going on with NIL and the transfer? And it sounds like, Braden Fowler, our quarterback, is going to stay. I saw that. And, these guys are getting offered a bunch of money these days, completely different than, when Patrick and I were going to school. And I would love to get your thoughts on just the state of what's going on.
It's got a lot of layers. What it does. And
it's like the Wild West. It almost feels like there's no regulation. There's, or people just aren't sure what's going on.
That's exactly right. And I really attribute it, it's a lot like artificial intelligence, to be honest with you. If everybody's so busy during their day-to-day, they really don't pay attention to what's going on with AI. And pretty soon our world's going to be unrecognizable if you don't really understand what it is and what it's doing.
Couldn't agree more.
Very, very much what the transfer portal and NIL are doing. It's for my first time, I've been in college football for over 3 decades. And it's the first time where a school's revenue that they generate is directly related to the type of players that they can have on the field.
Sure.
And so it doesn't matter what conference you're in. The strong eat the weaker, and it just goes right down the food chain. And that's what's happening in college football. And I'll just give you an example. I have a good friend that interviewed for the Texas A&M job, and Texas A&M told them that they have an $11 million budget for NIL. And so they have $11 million
annually
to go get players in the portal. And so that's probably the high end of college football. Texas Tech is a mid-range Big 12 team. They're working with about 5 million. I would bet Colorado's probably about that, about 5 million. And we're working about 500,000. And so it just shows you where we're at in the whole pecking order. We're all trying to get the same players.
Yeah.
We all want the very best players. Now, here's the other thing. What most people don't understand is that ever since NIL, used to be just not too long ago, 2 years ago, if we play Washington State or we play Texas or we play Michigan or we play
CSU gets paid.
Colorado, any Power 5 team, they have 85 scholarships. We have 85. Okay, so let's roll our sleeves up. Let's go play. It's an even playing field, right?
Right.
But ever since NIL, what schools are able to do, if they have the money, that last 35 kids that are walk-ons on your roster, they can put them on scholarship. And by simply giving them an NIL stipend, they just pay for their schooling.
Sure.
Give them a stipend. And so what's happened is that the player that we could recruit just 2 years ago, they're not out there anymore for us. We can't go get those kids and that are really good players that we could go compete versus the group of Power 5 schools. And so it's changed our recruiting landscape. And, the portal we can't go get a decent player in the portal without NIL money. You just can't do it.
How do we increase that budget with Colorado State, coach? So we're at 500.
We got to raise money. We got to raise money in our community. And I think it's a learning curve, right?
Yeah.
And the more people talk about it, the more you hear about it, the more everybody needs to understand is that if you want the Torrey Hortons and the Braden Fowler Nicolosis and the Isaiah Stevens, the guys that are the best players on our teams in our league, then that's going to be directly reflected to having enough NIL money to have them play at Colorado State. And that's just the bottom line. And so it's just really, it's important for, I guess you can talk about it from a community standpoint, that we all know this stadium was built 5 years ago. It's a fabulous stadium.
It's a great stadium. 10-minute walk from my house. I love it.
Yeah, it's one of the best stadiums in all a group of five. And our goal is to eventually be a Power 5 program. Our goal is to be able to line up and play against anybody in the country. But to do that, we got to have the players that those guys have. And that has changed dramatically in the last 2 years. And so, NIL is here. I don't know that it's going to be here for the long term, but it is here for the short term. And I really think in the next couple of years, the NCAA has 442 lawsuits against it. Majority of them are by players. And so
Johnny Manziel is coming in hot. He's saying, I would have got paid so much money.
And so it's the NCAA is very hesitant to put any rules in place that restrict the players. And so we're dealing with the players have all the power right now. They have all the power. They can go to whatever school they want, wherever they want. And so in this window, probably in the next 2 years, there's probably going to be revenue sharing in college sports at the highest level.
Yeah.
And with that's going to come contracts. And with that's going to come a collective bargaining agreement where
sounds a lot like the NFL right now, coach.
Very much so. Yeah, it's on the horizon. The federal government's probably going to get involved. But in this window here, we have to stay relevant. Because there is going to be another alignment with conference alignment.
Sure.
And we want to be in a position where we can be one of the top football schools to take advantage of.
Are you, I think you in the article as well, and I think it was the head of the SEC was talking about this on game day earlier this year about, I think we all agree that these kids should be getting part of the pie for sure. I mean, they are the product, they are out there doing it. But a lot of these kids are getting some shady deals thrown their way, and they don't know any different. They're either just come out of high school. Are you kind of helping your kids saying, hey, because I think there was one story about this kid signed an NIL deal, and in the contract, it was like, you got to pay us X percentage. If you go to the NFL, we're going to take a cut of your check out of the NFL, right, which is crazy. Are you kind of helping your kids get educated and hey, making sure you're not signing something that you're going to regret down the road?
Yeah, it's very difficult. And I mean, like our kids left before Christmas, before December 20th after finals. So we really haven't sat in front of our kids since then, almost a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the changes that have happened in the last month, they're incredible. I mean,
who's the kid that just went to Florida? Yesterday, just came out yesterday. Your backup quarter. I mean, former starting.
Yep. And so it's constant education. What's happening is that these schools have collectives, and these collectives end up being third-party entities. They're really not under the guise of the NCAA. And so these agents that communicate with these collectives are reaching out to our players, these third-party agents, and they're telling them, if you get in the portal, you can make. That's what happened to Braden. He had an agent get a hold of him and said, if you get in the portal, you can make $600,000.
Yeah, I read that.
And so and he's not the only one. Probably our top 12 players all got reached out to by independent agents, telling them that if they get in the portal, they could make 100 grand, 120 grand, all these different things. And so some of that's true, some of that's not true. And so kids are getting in and they're making bad decisions. You know, the statistics are every school is losing about 12% of its roster to the portal every year. And so this is going to be an ongoing thing that happens every year. But the other statistic that we try to educate our players on is that 75 to 80% of all group of 5 players that get in the portal and transfer to a Power 5 school, they play less or not at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the odds of a kid leaving Colorado State and going to whatever school, Texas A&M, Florida, Florida State, whatever, the odds of them getting the same opportunity to play are very minimal.
I think that's a good point. That's a great point to make.
So the kids need to understand that.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Michael Gallup and let's talk to Michael Gallup and say, hey, you're going to go play in Texas, third string, or you're going to start at CSU, get drafted to the Cowboys, and get $1 million worth of contracts.
And that's what we have to offer. We have opportunity. I mean, we have opportunity. We have a great school. We got a great coaching staff, and we, look at Dallin Hoker. Dallin Hoker was at BYU. He had 9 catches. He was a part-time player, and he came here. He was here 1 season. He had 64 catches. He led the nation at tight end, and but here's the sad part about that is that we went out and tried to recruit all the top tight ends in the portal. We couldn't get one of them to even trip our place, and it's all because of NIL money. We don't have the same money that Notre Dame and Ohio State and Texas A&M and those schools have to be able to attract those guys. And so it's a simple numbers game.
It feels like maybe some of these big boosters for CSU, maybe this is all around the country, are kind of sitting there. They got the money, they're ready to go, but they're like, man, I want a little bit more clarity in what's going on. I wonder if that's playing a role because, I feel like CSU and Fort Collins has got some backers and that can, take that 500,000 mark and bring it to 2 million or whatever that number is. And I feel like as more clarity comes out, you're going to have more people coming to the forefront. Is that a fair statement? Or
and that's what we've been trying to educate everybody on.
Okay.
But it's, if you're not in this world, you don't understand the factors of it, and it's changing so quickly, and it's not the same game. I mean, if you just say, oh, we've never had to do this, or when I was in school, we didn't have this, why do these kids need it now? The rules are completely different. And you have to pay attention to that, or you're going to get left behind. And so, it's just really, really, really important that we communicate that and we tell our boosters what's going on. And I've been spending a lot of time talking to our boosters and letting them know the type of situation we're in. We were fighting for our lives, this last month. I mean, I felt like when we finished the season that if we could keep our players, we would have the best roster in our conference coming back. With Braden and Torrey, if we could have kept Dallin, if we could have kept all our defensive players, we've lost some pretty good players. Grady Kelly, really good player.
Yeah.
Some agents reached out to him, said if he got in the portal, he could come back closer to Florida, and so he ended up getting a Florida State offer. TJ Crandall was probably our best young corner. He got in the portal, and he ended up at West Virginia. Lewis Brown, good young receiver for us. He got in. He's going to go to San Diego State. They're a new program. They don't have any receivers, so he's going to end up there. And then, we talked to Clay. We told Clay that, he got beat out. We really like Clay. We are high on him. And we actually talked to him about going in the portal and seeing what might happen for him.
Sure.
Now, here's the reality of what's going on in college football is that all these quarterbacks that don't start are leaving their schools.
Yeah.
And so nobody has any backups.
Sure.
Yeah, small problem.
Yeah. So nobody has any backups. So everybody is trying to figure that problem out. So even USC or Florida, they don't have any backup players because the guy that they recruited last year that thought he was going to be the starter and he's not, got in the portal to try to find a school where he could start at. And so it's just, the top 6 quarterbacks in college football statistically last year were all transfers.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Caleb Williams, Michael Penix at Washington, Bo Nix at Oregon. Those guys are all transfer players. They all came from another school and then.
And your top 3 picks in the NFL draft, probably
That's
there.
Exactly right. That's
yeah,
exactly right.
Crazy.
I mean, this is a long way removed from, 3, 4, 5 years ago when if you transferred, you're sitting out a year.
Right.
No money to players, scholarship and a stipend is what you're getting. And,
right.
It's just amazing to see the transition. Help our listeners understand what's the value proposition of getting involved with one of these collectives. So if I were to go, let's say, donate to CSU, maybe I get a better seat at the football stadium or, some invites to, different events. If I'm especially a big donor, say a bigger donor comes and wants to be part of this collective. What's the value proposition to that individual or group that wants to throw some big dollars towards a collective?
Well, John Weber has done an amazing job and is working with our green and gold guard and is really working with our athletes and communicating with our boosters about the type of program that we're putting on, and I think what I think boosters have to look at is that there's been traditional ways of giving where you're going to give to help us build a new weight room or help us feed our athletes or help us, get better equipment. Or they can take some of those traditional fundings and pour it into the green and gold guard, which really directly is to NIL and helping our players, improve themselves in that space. And John Weber has been amazing. He's doing this all basically volunteering his time to the university to help this cause. But it's a space that's really critical for us to be competitive. And I think it's just it's the boosters being educated on the value of what this is going to do for us in the near future. And helping our kids. Basically what we found is that our kids, if we can improve their NIL state a little bit for a fraction of what they could get out there, the other qualities of our program really have teeth. I mean, the opportunity to play, being at this great university, in this great community, playing in front of our fan base, those are things that that are really meaningful to an athlete's college experience. And so that whole package together can help us keep our players. John Weber, the green and gold guard, that's the place to go for people that are really interested. And it really matters. If we want to, I meet people all the time and they talk about how proud, they are of seeing our team fight and the competitive games that we played. And we played 7 one-score games this year. We had 4 games down to the last play, beating Boise, the way we played at Colorado, all that. But if they want to see us continue to grow and make the next step, we got to get active in this space.
I think that revenue share is going to be interesting, Coach. I think you bring up I never even thought about that. I mean, very NFL, but I think it's got to go that route.
Yeah.
Unless you end up being like the Major League Baseball, where, the Yankees and the Dodgers have the biggest payroll and just continue to crush the little guys. But
yeah, well, that's a great analogy to what college football is becoming right now, because you have the big revenue teams, and then you got the teams like the Oakland A's that are trying to be creative and try to
Kansas City Royals,
the whole Moneyball deal. And it's really a great analogy because there's, it's like the NFL with no salary cap.
Yeah.
So it is more like Major League Baseball, where each team can spend what it wants to spend, and so that's something. Yeah, I think the other thing that if we're not careful, we're going to see the SEC and the Big Ten break away from the NCAA and they start their own league. That's what's going to happen, and because those people,
there's no conferences anyways right now. I mean, the conferences are just
And the other thing that I think is going to be very interesting to see play out, just pull your phone up and look at USC's schedule next year.
Their travel scheduled, where they're going.
Their travel, but look at who they're playing. I mean, you're going to see some blue blood schools that are used to winning 9 and 10 games every year, and those schedules are daunting.
I got it right here.
Yeah,
just pulled it up.
They start with LSU and just it's just
you got Michigan right at you got LSU, Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State. I mean,
it's a murderer's row schedule, and so I just think that it's going to be very interesting to see how the fan bases respond to those teams playing that type of a schedule, and there's just a lot of changes that are on the horizon, and the transfer portal, where it's at in the season, in the middle of all the coaching changes, how when a coach leaves, it affects each school and they lose players. We're seeing it right now in the last week. I mean, Alabama, Saban retires and the Alabama players can get in the portal. Washington, Caleb DeBoer goes to Alabama. Now their players can get in the portal. Now we're talking about Brennan at San Jose. Their players are going to be available to the portal. So the players can leave anytime a coach leaves.
It's just crazy.
It's major. You're talking about major changes to these college programs.
Do you think going to 12 teams in the playoff, though? I think I'm a huge supporter of the 12-team playoff, but I feel like that helps schools like Colorado State. I mean, when it was just obviously when growing up as a kid, it was the coaches poll, the AP poll, top 2, there you go. And now they got to 4. I feel like that helps those schools like Colorado State. You guys get a season where you go undefeated and there's no question that you're going to be in that top 12. What are your thoughts on the change?
I do think it can be really helpful. And we've been looking forward to that. But again, I would say the NIL is directly related to that and allowing you to be competitive to get to that mark. And so absolutely, we've been pushing towards that. We really feel like, if we can be the best team in the Mountain West Conference and win our league, we'll have a chance to be in the college football playoff. And I think that is a huge possibility, and that's what we're pushing for. But also, you got to be able to manage your roster. You got to be able to keep your best players and also attract key players that can help you get there. And so, I think it's really exciting. And and I just came from the national the NCAA convention and for the AFCA, and I got voted as a member of the board of trustees. So I got voted to be represent the Mountain West Conference and our coaches. So I was involved in some pretty privy meetings, but I was sitting next to Dabo Sweeney, and Dabo Sweeney got up and said, we're the only profession in the world where the patients tell the doctors what to do. And that's what's happening with
so crazy.
Our players have all the power right now, and to be able to put a program together, develop a program, and have it continue to improve and get better, there's just a lot of challenges. One of the things Dabo Sweeney said is, some of these bowl games are unrecognizable. They don't even look like the team that played.
It was terrible this year. I thought it was brutal.
But this is what Dabo Sweeney said, next year, if I'm just going to use USC as an example, because I mentioned that schedule that they have, if they get through game 6 or 7 and they're eliminated from the college football playoff, there's going to be players opting out the rest of the season.
Yeah,
they're
you're
not
right.
going to play the rest of the regular season if they're not in the college football playoff. And so I just think there's some unintended things that are going to happen with all these new changes. And we just got to be realistic. We're already seeing it in the bowl season where players opt out. That's going to start creeping into the regular season if teams aren't in the 12-team.
You think those are for players that think they're going to get drafted in NFL, Coach? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. For insurance reasons.
Yeah.
So you can only control what you can control. And you're an individual that's just a grinder, hard worker, obviously very successful. How are you positioning Colorado State in a world of uncertainty to try to perform at its best?
Well, I think the big thing that we feel like is that I still believe that building the program, you got to get great high school players. And so we've been the top recruiting team in this league the last 3 years. We've had the number 1 recruiting class. We just had the number 1 recruiting class again in the Mountain West. So those great young players, when you develop them over time, are going to give you the foundation of a great program and give you consistent winning. That's number 1. Now, with that, you have to talk about retention and NIL because you can't recruit great young kids. And then after they play for 2 years, the Big 12 and the SEC are looking at our roster and they're pulling our best players right when they start to become old enough to really be successful players.
Sure.
So we've got to manage both of those things, bringing in great players, keeping them here, making them feel really comfortable, but also making their living here comfortable enough where they can make it, where they don't have to go out and try to get that NIL money from another school. So those are the things that we're putting into place. It was purposely, we bit the bullet our first 2 years, playing some young players, playing young quarterbacks, playing young receivers, trying to build the offensive line. And now we've got some experience coming back, and we're not in that same situation anymore. We got experienced players that we think are really high-level players. Our quarterback position is getting healthy and should be one of the better positions in the league. Our receivers, our offensive line, has taken us 2 years to really build that up, but I thought we played very well last year, and the core of that group's coming back. We got 2 great young backs, Justin Marshall and Damian Henderson. So we're really healthy in our roster. We got really good competitive players. Same thing defensively. And so we want to see those young players grow up, and we want to keep these kids together, And I was, like I said, when we finished the year, I thought we had the best roster in the Mountain West coming back. And now what happens is that roster changes so much in the offseason that you're not even sure what you have. And but we did lose Grady Kelly. We lost TJ Crandall, good young corner. We lost Lewis Brown. And then we kind of, we felt like Clay should get out in there and we wanted him to find a situation where he could go and compete. And, and he got that. It just shows you what people think of our players. I mean, that Florida would
seriously
take Clay. And so, so we knew that, we knew 2 years ago when we had all those young quarterbacks in that room, we knew that somebody was going to win a job and the other guys were probably going to leave. And that's just the way it goes. And so, and now we're sitting with Braden. We love Braden. We think he's going to be a really good player. And, and we've got to continue to develop guys to compete with him.
How much in the gray area are these colleges living and these collectives, by way of, like Chris was mentioning earlier, the kind of these shady deals, but who's to say a booster doesn't reach out to like an Isaiah Stevens and say, hey, I'll pay you $150,000 a year directly, but the agreement is you're here 4 years and it's contractually bound upon that. Like how much in these gray areas are you seeing these NIL deals go?
Well, I can only really speak for us is that, here at Colorado State, we're doing everything by the book. And, and we want to reflect the values of our school and our fan base. I mean, we want hardworking kids. when kids come on our recruiting trip here, we don't have Lamborghinis and Maseratis out here taking pictures with them. That's not why
you got a Subaru Outback and some Chacas, baby.
Subaru Outback.
Maybe a couple Jeep
there you go.
cons or something, but no, it's just not. It's not who we are, and we're trying to be realistic with these college kids, and so but that's going on a lot of places. And money's getting thrown around and it's enticing players to come. And basically, a lot of these schools are buying depth players. They're buying backups, they're buying guys in case somebody gets injured, that the guys get in the rotation. And so, and you can just look at some of the players that have left Colorado State the last 2 years and they go on to these other schools and you don't ever really hear about them again, or you don't see them on the field. And so it doesn't take long to track that and to see where these players have gone and what they've done at these other schools. It's not much. And so we just try to educate our players of that, but it's a challenge. You're basically forced to build a team for 1 year.
Yeah.
Every year. And the best you can. And you try not to lose your good players, and you're going to try to add as many good ones that can help impact your season. Now, our track record is in the last 2 years has been really good. We've brought in a ton of transfer players, and we've hit on majority of them. The Torrey Hortons. We brought in 4 transfer linemen last year, and they all started every game.
That's awesome.
And
huge,
really well. We went from 55 sacks 2 years ago to 13, and one of the best teams in America in protection. And so that was directly related to those kids. So we did a stat in the Mountain West Conference, and we by far exceeded everybody as far as what transfer players did we bring in and how much did they play and really help the team. And so, and not everybody's doing that, but we have a real specific criteria on what we're looking for. We were looking for guys that have played. A lot of these schools are in the transfer portal and they're recruiting these guys that never played. Maybe they were a 4-star coming out of high school, but they went to Arkansas or Auburn and they didn't play much, and now they're transferring to school X or whatever. And so you kind of have to pay attention to that, because it's all these guys in the portal are not experienced, dependable players. And that's what we look for. We look for guys that are 2-year starters at another school. Now they come here and they've proven that they're dependable. They're proven that they're going to be on the field, that their teammates can count on them. And they have a lot of success because that's what their track record is.
Coach, we know you don't have a ton of time, and we really appreciate it, but just a couple of things I want to – you guys are building a reputation of being just the go-to for tight ends and wide receivers, like Trey McBride with Arizona, just these guys crushing it in the NFL. Just thoughts on that? You getting calls from tight ends that want to come play for CSU?
It's interesting because the tight end position, I love Belichick's been a hero of mine, but if you think about it in football, and he's a great historian in football, but the tight end position, if you can imagine, every formation in football is dedicated on where they put the tight end. And so the tight end really is kind of an X factor for every offense. And if you have a talent there, you can kind of exploit the defense. And we know what to do with them. We've had some great tight ends, and you mentioned Trey McBride, and then when
Joel Dreesen,
a kid named Cole Turner when we were at Nevada, and he led the nation in touchdowns. And then we had Dallin. So last year, and gosh, I was working hard to keep Dallin here for 1 year. But he's a special player, and so. I like the guys we have. Vince Brown is a guy that backed up Dallin, and he's about a 6'7" kid, and he can run like crazy. And I think he can really have a good year. And Jordan Williams is a young guy who's really athletic, and Pete Montini and Mason Musa. We got some good young tight ends that we think will be really positive. And we just got a commitment from a receiver yesterday. I think we'll have 4 really capable receivers that are older guys. And then I love our young receivers. We got a lot of great young receivers coming up the pike. And this class this year, Jordan Ross, Jaden Landrum, those kids are in the mold of young Torrey Hortons. I mean, they're going to be special guys. And so really excited about that. But we've always attracted receivers and tight ends.
Yeah.
What we do and quarterbacks as well. I think you're going to love Darius Curry. He's a dynamic young quarterback from Long Beach Poly. And so we're getting healthy in those areas and we have more depth and competition than we ever had.
I love it. Well, I was just looking at next week. You guys got your little next year's schedule. We got 227 days, few hours and minutes before Texas, baby. Going down to Texas, Austin. And then I got a quick shout out to my Northern Colorado Bears. You guys are playing now UNC. I haven't seen that on the schedule for a long time.
That's great. Yeah, we play them, and I think the greatest thing is that every once in a while as a coach you get a year where you get 7 home games, and we have 7 home games next year. And our goal since we took this program over is we want to be undefeated at home. That's something that we want to do. We want to establish. We want Canvas to be a hornet's nest when people come in here. We want it to be really hard on them. And so
beat that team up north. Get those guys.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And so, so we're excited about the schedule. We play Colorado at home.
Yep.
We got Wyoming at home this year. It's a great schedule, so we're fired up about it.
Love it.
Coach. We'll finish up today because you've got a lot of recruiting to do, transfer portal players to get a hold of, people to hold and maintain, but after a long day's work of whether it's winning a game or recruiting a big talent, where do you find yourself having a beer on a Friday afternoon to relax, take your mind off all this things that are going on in your head?
That's a great question. I tell you what, we've snuck off to Prost a little bit. We like Prost and the guys over there are awesome and former CSU players and with the lines over there. And so that's been a cool place that we've snuck off as a staff for.
I love Prost. Like I said, I live like 10-minute walk from the stadium, Coach. I walk by Prost too. So I love it. Well, hey, any last thought before we let you go for the new season coming up? What should our fans know? What do you got? What are you most excited about?
I just love our team and the closeness of our team. And, we love Fort Collins. This is a community team. This is a team. We go all over the country. We represent Fort Collins and CSU. And I love the toughness of these guys. I mean, the guys like Chase Wilson and Jack Howell and Henry Blackburn and, our young defensive linemen. It's a special group of guys, and they love CSU. Jacob Garner's back, Torrey Horton, Braden Fowler. Braden walked in my office.
Torrey is coming back. He's not going to NFL? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And so just a lot of exciting players coming back that are really prideful. And, and we're just talking about making some adjustments in our game. We played a lot of close games, and I'm going to be honest, I'm disappointed that we didn't win more of them. We've had a history of winning a lot of those close games in the past. And so we fell short on a couple that we should have finished. And I think our guys are determined to have a different outcome this year in 24.
Go Rammies, baby. Let's go Rams.
Well, Coach Norvell, I appreciate you jumping on with us and excited to see what you've got going on with all of Colorado State athletics. So thanks.
Appreciate it, Patrick. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it, man.
See ya.
Friends of the podcast, thank you so much as always for tuning in. We thank you so much for your support. And just so you know, my amazing co-host Patrick Soukup over there, he is the founder, started Soukup Real Estate. If you ever need any questions about buying or selling or just want a market report on your existing home, reach out to Patrick. His team is absolutely fantastic. Born and raised in Fort Collins. His information is right there on the page. Strongly recommend reaching out.
And same for you, Chris. As if you guys are looking at buying or refinancing a home here in Northern Colorado, There's nobody better to reach out to than the Murphy Whitlock Group, and Chris Murphy is going to take incredible care of you. So do not hesitate to reach out, ask questions. He is in no rush, no hurry. So give him a chance, and I think he's going to do a great job for you. Thank you for watching.